What's good, everybody? This is Deal saying I'm not doing my normal applause and sound effects and all this stuff that I normally do. In fact, this isn't even live. This topic, this topic to me is just too serious to have live. I don't want any distractions. I'm not trying to, although I will be watching the comments later, but I wanted to focus on this. I wanted to really focus on this. So what is it I'm talking about, right? So you look at the title, there was nothing good about slavery. Nothing. There was nothing good about slavery in America. Nothing. That's it. There's no discussion. There's nothing to talk about. There was nothing good about slavery in America. What my ancestors went through, there was nothing good about that. And for Ron DeSantis, his government to do what they have done with reference to educating our children. Like, we got to talk about this. And it's like no distractions, no sound effects, no chat. We got to have a talk, y'all. This is real. So this has been going on for a while. I like to give time for stories when they break, for stuff to happen, to do a little research, to wait for some articles to come out, to see what's being said, right? Boy, like this one right here doesn't make any sense to me. None whatsoever. And it's telling where we are politically. It's telling that, any governor of any state in the union would allow this sort of thing to happen, would back it and defend it. This whole wokeness, the left, the right, and whatever, and you got to draw a line somewhere. At some point, you have to draw a line. Like, all right, enough of this madness. Enough is enough. Ron DeSantis is a joke. Let me just keep it 100. This guy has absolutely no sense whatsoever. This guy has no leadership ability. This guy has no backbone. I have no idea what he's trying to do. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. On the one hand, I guess you could say it's good. I like when people show me who they are. It makes it easy for me. He's definitely shown his colors. He's let his colors fly. Like, this is dumb. This is dumb. And we're going to get into this, and it all boils down really to like one, couple sentences, right? This is what it boils down to. But the fact that they left that in, and the fact that they are fighting and doubling and tripling down on it, tells you everything you need to know. Like, Ron DeSantis does not want your vote in Florida, right? It's real talk, bro. He is doing everything he can to hand the state of Florida to the Democrats. I can't wait for the tinfoil hat people to come out with the conspiracies behind this. But it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. This is Fox News. This is a Fox News article, Fox News Digital. It's written by Joshua Q. Nelson, who's a black guy. Right. So, it is what it is. Maybe he's a pool reporter. Maybe this story just happened to be his turn to jump on this story. I don't know. But this was published July 20th. Today's the 24th. July 20th, 2023 at 8:30 p.m. So DeSantis administration fires back at criticism over newly adopted African-American studies standard. The standard will teach it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the Florida Department of Education told Fox News Digital. I don't believe that. There's a lot of people out here, especially when it comes to history. My thing is, if we're going to teach history, which you must, because those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. We must teach our history. America's a very, very violent nation, period. That ain't going to change no time soon. How do you think we on top on the planet? Can't nobody mess with us. It's not because we're nice. right? We are good at killing, real good at it. Right? Don't nobody want to mess with us because they know what it means. So to say that they're going to tell it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I haven't gone through all of the the newly adopted curriculum. I haven't gone through all of it, right? It's a lot. You know what I mean? I'm slowly getting through it. But we're gonna touch on this. We're gonna read this article. Um, that just doesn't make sense to me, y'all. I mean, it does make sense to me. It's just so stupid, man. It's just so dumb. I don't know what the Republicans are doing. And to be quite honest with you, most Republicans don't know what they're doing either. The Republican Party is fractured right now. It is like I said, times are changing. We are in the midst of a major shift in America, and enjoy the ride. Y'all, we are living through history. The Florida Department of Education on Wednesday updated its standards for teaching African American studies. However, it was met with backlash from the state's teachers union. So the Florida Department of Education comes out with a curriculum. They come out with standards. And right away, the teachers, right, the very people in the trenches who are going to teach the kids where the rubber meets the road, the teachers have a problem with it. Like, what are we doing? The teachers. And what's the administration do? Push forward. Right. The Florida State Board of Education held a public comment forum for over an hour to discuss K through 12 social studies standards for African American history. The Tallahassee Democrat reported that although a majority of speakers opposed the new standards, the board ultimately voted unanimously to approve the standards. Opponents say the curriculum leaves out Florida's role in slavery and the oppression of African Americans, victim blames Black communities, and uses outdated language, the Tallahassee Democrat reported. And I guess that's the paper in Tallahassee. So, again, I haven't read it all, so it's really tough for me to comment on it. But just from what I've seen, what I've read so far, and some of the things that just being discussed, it's funny when you walk around Florida and you ask people about Rosewood that they don't know what you're talking about. No clue, huh? Rosewood, huh? What? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. If you don't want to do any research, just watch the movie. Just watch the movie. Vin Rames was in that one. Don Cheadle was in that one. Very powerful movie. Happened right down here, Rosewood, Florida. Mary Lynn Mager, who was appointed to the State Board of Education by Governor Ron DeSantis in March, right? So Mary Lynn Mager was appointed to the State Board of Education by Governor Ron DeSantis. The appointed. You know what I mean? Just real quick, y'all. This lady was appointed by the governor, placed there by the governor, all right? Right? And she was appointed in March. Told the Tallahassee Democrat that the darkest parts of the American history are addressed in the newly updated standards. Everything is there, Mager said. The darkest parts of our history are addressed, and I'm very proud of the task force. I can confidently say that the Department of Education and the task force believe that African American history is American history, and it's represented in those standards. Right? And that on his face sounds good. All right, history is history. Okay, I'm with you. I'm behind you. Right? I'm behind you. But what's really in there? What's really in there? After the standards were made public, the state's largest teachers union, the Florida Education Association, FEA, sent a press release that took aim at DeSantis. They claim the new standards are a disservice to Florida students and are a big step backward for the state that has required teaching African American history since 1994. They didn't start teaching It wasn't required to teach African American history in Florida until 1994. Wow, didn't know that. No, that's something. Um, so the FEA, again, that's the teachers union. Specific concerns with African American history standards. One they have because they have some concerns with the standards, right? One of the concerns they claim is that high schoolers will learn that the 1920 Oki massacre, where at least 30 African Americans were killed for attempting to vote, is being conflated with acts of violence perpetrated by African Americans. Now, again, I haven't read that part. I haven't read that part. Again, this is a Fox News article, Fox News Digital. But again, we're supposed to be telling the, good, bad, and the ugly, right? The right, the wrong, and the horrific. There's your opportunity. African Americans were murdered by non-African Americans, right? Trying to vote. This is a part of American history. This is the ugly that they said that they put in the history. This is what we need to teach our children. Voting is so important that people lost their lives trying to legally do so. This is a very important part of history, and this is part of history that must be told. We cannot allow this to be forgotten. Right. And again, I haven't read it, so I'm not gonna jump on that too heavy, but it's in here. Right. It's in here. And I'm definitely gonna have a look at it. Trust and believe I'm gonna have a look at it. But they're saying there are attempts being made to conflate what really happened. We want to tell our children that, well, yeah, it happened and 30 black folks were killed, but it was acts of violence perpetrated by other black folks. Come on now. Other black folks are going to keep you from voting to the point where they want to end your life? Come on now. I ain't buying that. They also share a concern that the new standard requires middle school students to be taught that the experience of slavery was beneficial to African Americans because it helped them acquire skills. And this is what got most people up in arms. And we're going to be teaching this to middle schoolers. They share a concern that new standards require middle school students, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, right? New standards require middle school students to be taught that the experience of slavery was beneficial to African Americans because it helped them acquire skills. Again, this is a Fox News article. Furthermore, the FEA took aim at elementary school students being required to learn to identify famous African Americans like Rosa Parks, Zora Neale Hurston, and George Washington Carver, but not learn broader context of the individual histories and backgrounds. So we're going to be able to point them out. Here's your test. Point them out on the test. Cool, but you don't have to know what they did. You don't have to know why they are significant. All right, so it's like, okay, you can point out Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and FDR, which most kids, let's be honest, probably couldn't do that today anyway. Most big kids couldn't do that. But let's just say, we're just gonna have you point these pictures and say, yeah, you got it. Yeah, you got it. Hey, but who are those people? What did they do? Why are we having you point them out? That's important. What they did was heroic. What these people have done, well, what they did helped make this country what it is today through all sorts of different venues. Like being strong, being smart, being innovative, fighting a system that is dead set against them. To do all that while you're being oppressed. I mean, that's really tough. Right? That's how you set that bar. That's how you get up there to where we want all the kids to know how to point your picture out. So why aren't we teaching them this? Why aren't we teaching them this? Like I said, they doubled and tripled down on it. But their study of African American history does not extend to understanding these individual histories and struggles. Evidently, in an attempt to protect students from wokeness, These new standards will make sure that through the fourth grade, elementary school students' knowledge of African American history doesn't extend beyond being able to know who a famous African American is when they see them. And that's what the teachers union release stated. So a lot of people are saying that, well, our kids are coming home traumatized because we're learning how aggressive America is. We're learning, what America's did, what our ancestors did to our other ancestors. And, boo hoo, mommy. This is sad, mommy. Well, that's how life is. Right? That's what it is. Just wait till you figure out who we took the land from. Just wait till you find out what we did with those blankets and smallpox. Wounded knee. Just wait. Just wait till you see. Wait till you see what we're doing to this day to the native people of this land. It's what it is, man. Tell the truth. There's no getting around it. The Florida DOE, and that's Department of Education, sent Fox News Digital a statement in response to the teachers union criticism, the teachers union, the FEA criticism, and said students will learn about the good, bad, and the ugly. Doesn't seem like it. Right? The teachers union, fresh off another defeat in court, is just looking to convince educators that they have any shred of usefulness left as an organization. Now, this is the press release coming from the government talking about the teachers union. The and this is coming from the director of communications from the Florida Department of Education. Every standard, benchmark, and Bixmark clarification was developed using a methodical process within our work group. Our work group began in February and moved through May to ensure the new standards provide comprehensive and rigorous instruction on African American history. We proudly stand behind these African American history standards. So that's what the government had to say about what the teachers, right? That's what management had to say about the teachers. That's what they had to say. They mad because they keep losing. We did a good job. We are proud of what we did. It was a very methodical process that went from February through May. We worked really hard for those 4 months. Did you? Rigorous. Did it start February 28th and end May 1st? Right? Like, come on, man. Really? Y'all put a lot of thought into this one. And we proudly stand behind these African American history standards. All right. All right. Again, this is a Fox News article, guys. This is Fox News that we're reading here. Florida Department of Education specifically addressed the accusation that the curriculum about slaves benefiting from slavery, right? So they wanted to talk about that part when they was like, oh, slaves benefited. Okay. There have been questions raised about language within the benchmark clarification of standards, SS68AA23, which says instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. The statement reads, the intent of this particular benchmark clarification is to show that some slaves developed highly specialized trades from which they benefited. This is factual and well documented. Some examples include blacksmiths like Ned Cobb, Henry Blair, Lewis Latimer, John Henry, shoemakers like James Fortin, Paul Coffey, and Betty Washington Lewis, fishing and shipping industry workers like Jupiter Hamilton, John Cavers, William Whipper, and Cypress Atticus, tailors like Elizabeth Kickley, James Thomas, and Marietta Carter, and teachers like Betsy Stockton and Booker T. Washington, right? So, all right. Okay. So they're trying to say that, they're not trying to say, they're saying that some slaves got skill sets that were a benefit to them, and they were able, because of these skill sets and these trades that they learned, could go out and earn. I think that's what they're trying to say. So if you are my slave and you are a farmer and you, when you're not being a slave to me, go out and till some land and put the seeds in and grow a harvest, they're saying like you learned that skill being a slave, and that's being a slave, and that's beneficial to you because you can go out and set up yourself a little stand or sell off your crop to whoever, the highest bidder. Now you got this money. I think that's what they're trying to say. And that's absolute bullshit. Because if you're my slave and I see you over there doing whatever you doing, I'm gonna let you do all that. Go ahead and grow all that. Go ahead. Put the seeds down, all that. You go do all that stuff. And then when the harvest comes and you make your money, I'm taking that money. All of it. Because you're my slave. That's the whole point. You're not a person. But the 3/4 compromise or something like that, are you gonna teach kids about that? I think that's in there. I do believe that's in there though, because I did read some of it. I think that's in there. They are talking about some stuff, but they're not hammering it home. If you were a slave and you wanted to go work on your free time, which if you're a slave, there is no free time. All your time is my time. I own you. But you want to go out on your free time, you need the master's approval. You need permission to do it. Slaves couldn't just go out, walk around at night. You wind up swinging from a tree. You needed permission as a grown up, which means you have no freedom. So any money you making or anything you doing, that's mine. I'm just letting you have it. I'll come take it when I want it. Just like I come take your kids. I can come take your kids and sell your kids. I can come take your kids and do whatever I want with your kids because they mine. There's nothing good about slavery, y'all. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm just reading this like, man, they trying to double down. Any attempt to reduce slaves to just victims of oppression fails to recognize their strength, courage, and resiliency during a difficult time in American history. Florida students deserve to learn how slaves took advantage of whatever circumstances they were in to benefit themselves and the community of African descendants, the statement continued. That's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. I see what they're trying to do, but that's all bullshit. This ain't about victim, bro. If you're a slave, you're a slave. You have no freedom. You're not even human. You want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly? Well, that's part of the ugly. That is absolutely in the ugly column right there. My ancestors weren't human. We were subhuman. And there's some people who still believe that to this day. I mean, it's what it is. And this is why we have to tell the truth. We have to educate our children. So when they come across these knuckleheads who still believe that stuff, right? When we come across these people who say this kind of stuff, our children will be smart enough, wise enough, and be able to think themselves through it. Like, nah, that person right there, something wrong with them. Because they know the truth. They'll be armed with the truth. So I don't know what else to say. It's hard. What are the Republicans thinking? What are they thinking? Reportedly, the FEA was among 11 organizations, including the NAACP, that penned a letter to the Florida State Board of Education criticizing the new standards. Yeah, I bet they did. The NAACP President CEO Derek Johnson on Wednesday released a statement calling the new standards an attempt to bring our country back to the 19th century America, where black life was not valued, nor are rights protected. So that's what he's trying to say. He's like, this is an attempt to bring the country back to the 19th century where black life was not valued, nor are rights protected. That was the statement from the NAACP. And that brings us to the end of the article. Parents, you got to really be involved in what's going on with your children, especially if you live in Florida. Parents, you got to pay attention to what they're being taught. You got to pay attention to what they're being taught. I mean, it's not just because of this, it's just a whole bunch of stuff out there. It's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Parents, you got to get involved. I know it's hard. We're working hard, working 2-3 jobs, doing this hustle culture, doing whatever we're doing. When you get home, you're tired, you're exhausted. I get it, but man, we got to push through that. We got to look after our kids. Look after our kids. At least, have your kids watch documentaries, have your kids read stuff, and come home, go and take them to school, bring them back or whatever, and talk about that. We're going to have to supplement their education, because what they're getting now, what they're getting now may be, subpar. It is what it is. I don't understand what DeSantis and his administration is thinking, man. I really don't. I look forward to seeing the comments. I look forward to seeing the comments on this, guys. But we're not done. We are not done. So I want to show you guys a video. React to this video. This is Rising the Hill TV. This is the show that Crystal and Sagar came from, right? And the show hasn't recovered since they left. And y'all know Crystal and Sagar. Those are my people. They're on Breaking Points. They talked about this a little bit, but this particular conversation was better, in my opinion. So we're gonna watch this. They show the comments from Kamala Harris. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's check this out. My bad, y'all. I forgot to set it up. I forgot to push these buttons. Y'all can see my head ain't working right. I'm already tripping. So here we go. Let's back this up just to here. And here we go.
By the Florida Department of Education. Let's hear some of what she said.
In the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
The new curriculum says instruction includes how slaves developed skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit.
CNN political commentator Scott Jennings roasted Vice President Harris on her apparent, according to him, misrepresentation of this situation. Let's watch.
This is a completely made-up deal. I looked at the standards. I even looked at an analysis of the standards in every instance where the word slavery or slave was used. I even read the statement of the African-American scholars that wrote the standards, not Ron DeSantis, but the scholars. Everybody involved in this says this is completely a fabricated issue. And yet, look how quickly Kamala Harris jumped on it. So the fact that this is her best moment, a fabricated matter, is pretty ridiculous in my opinion.
So, this is where the team politics comes into play. I don't know what this guy's really thinking. I mean, real talk, I don't know what he's really thinking. That part when he's like, oh, this is all fabricated, that's a lie. We just read the article. It's right there, right? How slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their better personal benefit. That's a quote right from it. And they're going to talk about it in a little bit, but nah, bro, come on now. He has to be smart enough to see what's going on. And again, this is where we get into this team politics. Can't back that. Come on now. Like, at least you can at least call it for what it is. Like, yeah, man, it has some wording here. I read this. I can see why people are getting upset about this. Maybe it's, maybe it wouldn't hurt to revisit the language. You can say stuff like that. Like, yeah, that's what they did. But blah, blah, blah. Man, it's bullshit, man. It's bullshit. Let's continue.
On the flip side, CNN commentator Karen Finney praised Harris's comments.
It was a stellar moment, and I think she did something that she has done often in the last couple of years, which is in a moment when something needed to be said, she got out there and said it and really channeled what people were feeling. I mean, the idea that we would literally have a conversation, I mean, I have to laugh, it's so disgusting, that there were personal benefits of any kind to slaves. That's like saying women, were happy when we couldn't vote and we couldn't have our own banking accounts. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, when she said that about women, I ain't gonna lie to you. I was, what? You comparing this to what? And then I get where she's coming from. She's just making a quick analogy. I get where she's coming from. So it was like, all right, whatever. But gotta agree with what she said. Is absolutely nothing beneficial about being a slave in Americans' version of slavery. Nothing. There was nothing good about slavery. And no matter what team you sitting on, politically, what side of the aisle you sit on, when you talk on this, that should be the first thing you say. There was nothing good about American slavery. And then go on and say whatever it is you're gonna say. But if we can't agree on that, now what are we doing? What are we doing? Here we go.
So one of the analyses of the standards was done by Charles Cook in National Review. He's listed the 191 times slaves, slavery, etc. appears in the standards. I'm reading through them. I don't think they would be controversial to basically anyone. It very much seems to me from reading them that the how horrible and inhumane slavery is being recommended to be taught in these very specifically in so many contexts. So I do think from looking at this that Kamala Harris is greatly exaggerating her narrative for how bad these standards are. But what was your takeaway?
Yeah, so I read through the actual curriculum. I still have it up on my computer. And I mean, they do recommend teaching the actions of Nat Turner, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, and responses to their efforts to end slavery. It's a pretty thorough curriculum, which leads me to wonder, how would a teacher teach all of this in 1 year or one semester? Are they picking parts of this which they focus on more than others? In which case, it would be concerning that there's such a large amount of information to be taught on slavery pre-1619. Slavery in Africa, slavery in Asia, a lot of claims about the existence of slavery before European colonizers arrived there in
Well, that's
Africa.
in here. A lot of that is in here.
A lot of that is in
Instruction
here.
includes how slavery was utilized in Asian, European, and African cultures, identify Afro-Eurasian trade routes, describe the contact of European explorers with slave trading in Africa, the connections between Russian serfdom and slavery, and so on.
Right. And it might be a little bit too much of a focus on that, right? I think there's a complicated history there that I don't know that a high school teacher can tease through. It's the kind of curriculum that I didn't get till I was, a concentrated major in African studies and the international studies major that I had in undergrad. And it's something that has taken a lot of effort to get to be recognized, the contact of Europeans to Africa. What was Africa like before that? This idea that people were kidnapping their brothers and sisters and cousins and selling them as slaves is just not something that is backed up by anthropologists and historians. And it seems to me that there's a lot of focus on that in this curriculum, which is concerning. It's not that it's everything, but it's certainly there. And this contrast in the media coverage of this, the claim that it's fabricated, I think is not true. Those exact words are in the curriculum. And teachers can expand upon that. And so for folks to be talking about that in mainstream media is concerning. The one thing I will say about Kamala Harris's appearance is that she uniquely had approved talking points seemingly before appearing.
Yeah, and they get into some political stuff. They talk about her talking points. Look, politically, Kamala Harris is not popular, right? She's not popular. More often than not, vice presidents are tasked to be the bulldog and to tackle stuff and kind of, be the point person to get out there and see what's going on, to kind of test the waters, so to speak, for the rest of the administration. All right. I mean, she jumped out there. She said what she said. The entire administration was on board. In fact, her words was carefully crafted and all that stuff. I get that. That's normal. I wish that, right, that the state of Florida and the governor's mansion here in Florida, Ron DeSantis and his crew, had done the same thing. And the fact that they didn't weigh the words that they're using leads me to believe that they're saying exactly what they wanted to say. They're doing exactly what they wanted to do. This is what they want kids to know. Hey, there was some benefits to some slaves. It wasn't all bad. And that's, my friend, is bullshit. That is a problem. And like I said, they're fighting on this. This shouldn't be a question. Like, yeah, take that out. Like all Republicans should be like, yo, man, take that out. What are you doing? No, take that out. And like what this young woman here, I think her last name was Burbank. I forget her name, but this young woman here who's talking, she's like, it's a lot of information for a teacher to get through in 1 year. And it's a lot of greatness there. Like you don't know what the teacher is going to teach. There's a lot of room there. How do you know a teacher is not going to latch on that right there, that one thing, and say, hey, boys and girls, let's teach you how the good slave owners treated their slaves. Let's teach you how those good slave owners were American heroes. Now those slave owners became a part of the Confederate States of America, and they went to war with the United States of America, and they were defeated. If y'all want to talk about the truth, they were defeated. Where did we go wrong with that? We didn't re-educate the Confederates. We didn't take that Confederate leadership and line them up against the wall, because that's what you do after a war. And we didn't take those soldiers and re-educate them. And then the North walked away from it. And that led to Jim Crow. That led to the Klan. That led to the vicious oppression that went on after slavery. That led to Tulsa and Rosewood and all the rest of them. Again, they said they wanted to teach the real history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Seems like they want to stay away from the ugly. That's my take on it. Let's continue.
In public,
Yeah,
this
she
time.
had something to say that I think was wrong. It made grammatical sense. Is
unique.
an improvement for her. And I guess so the specific thing they're up in arms about is
Right.
the teaching that
Personal benefit.
slaves, there were personal benefits that some experienced during slavery that allowed them to be successful in their lives, and then after slavery. I think there's certainly like a way of saying that sound, and maybe that was a clumsy phrasing for it, but I don't think, obviously, the suggestion should not be that slavery, despite being bad, was still somehow beneficial. Slavery was definitely not beneficial. I think what they were just trying to do is recognize that some enslaved people, learn to read or learn skills that actually weren't supposed to learn, but people taught them. They learned from each other. Some people went against what the slavery regime prescribed that you were supposed to do, and that it's just a historical fact. Not that it was ideal, or that we're saying it's good, or that it lessens the evil of slavery, but just the reality is that enslaved people had lives and culture and some even within the regime of slavery, economic growth and conditions and learning that did allow them to flourish even under slavery and after slavery. But that is not an excuse for slavery or something,
Right.
a box to check. That's despite slavery, right?
You see how this guy is struggling to even form his words. You cannot flourish. You cannot thrive under slavery. And then he was talking about after slavery. All right, let's say that you are a blacksmith and a bunch of white guys come to your shop and tell you to shoe their horses and do all this stuff, do all this work. And it's time to get paid, and they're going to look at you and like, we ain't paying you nothing, boy. How you going to flourish under those conditions? Like, where's that silver lining? And if you try to stand as a man and get your wages from these people that is owed to you, law enforcement would come. Johnny Law would come and crack your head open. And these boys, if they wanted to, these good old boys, go ahead and burn your shop to the ground. That's what happened. That was a reality back then. There's no way to flourish when someone else owns you. It ain't possible. And he made a comment about, despite all that, we still had culture. No, we do not. The culture was stripped from us. That's the whole thing. So your culture was stripped from you. If you're going to say we had a culture, then you got to tell the children how our culture was stripped from us and a new culture arose. You got to say it that way, which is still horrific. And you get into stuff like religion. You could talk about the slave Bible versus how the Bible and how religion was used to keep these people under thumb, right? There's nothing pretty about slavery. Nothing. Just like there's nothing pretty about war. Nothing. There's no way to talk around it. You see what I'm saying? There's no way. We have no culture. We had to create another culture. We had no family. Our family would be ripped apart. Children sold off and this and that. Husbands and wives ripped apart. We're not even going to get into the viciousness that occurred on some of these plantations. Down here in Florida, in the deep South, Mississippi, Alabama. We ain't going to get into that, Louisiana. And we ain't going to get into that. But y'all know what I'm talking about. We know the tactics that were used. Over 4 centuries, y'all. It was nothing good about it. Let's continue.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that's how a good teacher would take this curriculum.
Despite slavery, these people thrived and achieved something and bettered themselves in their stations and were prepared.
They did not thrive. That's not thriving. That is surviving. You simply survived. And again, I'm not beating up on this guy. I don't want to beat up on this guy. But that's the whole problem right there. Tell the truth, and you won't have to pick your words as carefully. Just tell the truth.
Prepared to survive, to do even better without it, despite slavery, not because of it. Maybe that's the framing.
Right. And slaves developing skills that could be used for their personal benefit is the kind of sentence that's like, what was their personal benefit? We will teach you how to till the soil and pick the cotton. And the personal benefit to you is you won't get beaten by your master if you do these things. Like, seriously, that's what I get from that. But also to frame it as this kind of large skills training. We're teaching people a trade, and slavery is just this big, charitable project to teach people skills. Like, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But I don't know. But I think Kamala Harris was reading that into it because she wants to be big mad about this.
Yeah, I think she wanted to have a moment and
or whoever wrote her
like Gen Z language of like.
And they kind of go into how, Kamala Harris wanted to score some political points. Well, so do the Republicans. Everyone wants to score political points. I mean, that is what it is. Right. And there's a lot of points out there to be scored, thanks to DeSantis. Right. There's a lot of points to pick up out there. This was dumb. And then to put it out there, I guess earlier in the thing when someone was saying how these were African-American people or, doctors or academics who wrote this, not DeSantis. They wrote this for the government of Florida. And who's in charge of that government? DeSantis. To sit there and say, well, it's okay because black people wrote it. Again, not a good look. Not a good look.
Like gaslighting. She really wanted it to go viral. And it's this common cringe thing that politicians do now, where they say things in a way where you just know they're trying to go viral. There's no righteous indignation in the word, they're trying to gaslight us. I'm sorry, but using pop culture words in this scenario, it doesn't land.
Gaslighting has just become like the most overused term for everything, right? Everyone's gaslighting everybody all the time.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with the curriculum is simply that it can be interpreted because it's vague and interpreted in a direction where they can minimize what slavery was and the impact of slavery.
Right.
And I think that's the main problem with it.
But I don't think they're trying.
And she's absolutely right. That's exactly what they're trying to do. That is the purpose. All this is about CRT. This is our answer to critical race theory. Again, critical race theory is taught at the highest levels of academia. It's not taught at K through 12. It's not. But this is what they're doing. So you got this silly fight, right? It's going on with, in the political realm, but this has real meaning on the ground. History is extremely important. We don't know who we are if we don't know where we came from. And how the hell can we get where we need to go if we don't know these things? This is why history is so important. We do not want to repeat this. Right? We don't. But she had a great point. That it's so vague, it's so gray that you will have grown-ups out there using this as an opportunity to mislead and miseducate children, K through 12. Right? And she's going to go on to talk about how, it'll be people who might want to take advantage of that in the South, but I would argue it's people who want to do that all over the country, from the Midwest to the far west, to the West, right? North and South. And let's continue.
To do that.
Right. They could. It could.
I mean, there's there's 160 or however many mentions of slavery, and very much. I haven't read every single one of them yet, but it gives you the impression that slavery is bad. Like I don't think schools are actually out there teaching that that slavery is not bad. Am I wrong about that?
I don't know. I think we're going to find out. I think there's
they're
going to be
teaching
much
that
more
it's bad.
attention on this. And I think now there's going to be kids that have their cell phones in classrooms. And if a teacher's taking this curriculum in the other direction, they're going to have heard their parents talking about it on the dinner table or heard about it in the news and think.
I mean, I'm sure there in some southern school districts in the past, there's been, I'm not sure so much different spin on slavery was bad, but maybe a different spin on, the Civil War was actually fought over states' rights rather than slavery. Sure. There's a whitewashing of or whatever you want to call it, of how bad the Confederacy was and how structured over slavery it was and lost cause. Okay. I get all that. I know some of that went on, evolution is true. I know schools aren't always teaching what good progressives want them to teach and that sort of thing. Fine. But I'm looking at what they're doing in Florida, and it seems like this stuff seems pretty normal at the K through 12 level. It seems pretty within keeping of what history is. So
growing up in a northern state, in Connecticut, and then now living in the South, I feel that the way that the northern states teach slavery sows division in the country, because they teach it from the perspective of we were so benevolent and good and we wanted to stop it, but they wanted to keep the slaves. That doesn't make sense, because who imported the slaves? Where were the largest slave auctions? New York City, right?
You're not letting Massachusetts Bay Colony off the hook here.
Right.
So, it's real important. This part right here, and we're coming up on the end of this particular clip, but this is really important because she's talking about what she learned in college. She's talking about, well, I was in the Northeast and we learned this, and they're trying to paint this picture. Well, it really wasn't us up here, wasn't us white folks. It's them Southerners down there. But then she goes off and she really learns the true history. And she was like, hold on now. It was y'all. It was us too. Y'all too. Right. So it was it was just, hold on now. Where did she learn this? College, university level. And then she came back, was as a grown-up, nah, man, that ain't right. Teach what really happened. And she's talking to the North. She's talking to Northerners. Let's continue.
Right, exactly. They were also complicit. In fact, they sold it to them. Think about what happens if you're selling drugs. You are the drug dealer and you get in trouble and you get booked, and someone who bought the weed or drugs also gets booked.
Right.
Who gets in more trouble? The one that was selling the stuff. And so the way that the North frames themselves is totally innocent. They were also benefiting from getting extremely cheap raw goods from the South. Their economy and their economic well-being and them getting rich depended on slavery. They were entirely complicit. So that also needs to be taught, I think, in northern schools. There's a lot of changing of the curriculum to be done, but there's some good stuff in this curriculum, and there's some stuff that I think is vague and could be taught in bad ways.
And I agree with her. And the fact that she learned the true history. She went and got the real science. She got the knowledge, and she came back and she was like, yo, this is wrong. The way I was taught up north in Connecticut, this is wrong. This is why we need to teach our children the facts. Here it is right here. This is it. This is what it really is right here. So later on in life, they can't get bamboozled or hoodwinked because they know the facts. They know how to read, write, and understand. They've learned this stuff. Like, no, that's wrong. And if we don't teach our children these facts, then it's going to be easy for those, whoever they are, to bamboozle, to hoodwink, to trick our children, who will be grown at that point and run the country. So it'll be far easier to take what they have because we didn't bother to properly educate our kids. You know, this is a bad thing. And if I don't understand how the Republicans are sitting back doing what they're doing, I don't understand why the grown-ups in the room on the Republican Party, and they don't have to do this publicly, just come forth and say, hey, we need to change the wording on this. We need to change the language on this. We need to look at what y'all are doing. And then if you got someone like DeSantis who won't listen to you, then fine. Now you got to stand up and you got to go against him. Now you got to stand up and be like, nah, that's wrong. That's wrong. Yeah, the Democrats got it wrong on all these other things, but on this thing, I agree with them. We need to change this. Let's teach our children what really happened. And if that means that I got to help get this dude voted out of office, then so be it. And I think that we need that. We need that type of leadership. We need that kind of bravery from those who are in power, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side. It's out of control, y'all. It's out of control. You know what I mean? And that's pretty sure we'll be talking about this some more. Maybe we'll talk about, some more fallout, the ramifications behind this. Definitely going to have to talk about DeSantis. He could continually drop it in the polls, a continuous drop. It's just one of those things. And this is just one of many reasons why. But yeah, we're definitely going to have to talk about DeSantis some more. Thanks for rocking out with me, y'all. Like I said, I wanted to record this one. I didn't want to do this one live because I didn't want to lose my train of thought. I have my notes right here. We were able to get through it. We read that article from Fox. We watched The Rising, right? The Hill TV, to get that perspective from two, they look like millennials or something like that, just to hear this back and forth. And it's so difficult for the right to defend this. This is just ridiculous, right? And I'll just end with these words. There was nothing good about slavery. So thanks for rocking out with me. I'm DL Saint. This is the Downrange Podcast, and I will talk to you guys later. And before I go, let me put the banner up. I forgot to put the banner up, guys. See how there it is right there. Boom. There it is. This was the Downrange Podcast. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.